Hey, it's Sol with another video, and if you're new here, stick around and subscribe for more of this and all things Warcraft. Thanks to the wonderful sponsors for making this content possible. There's a common argument among critics of the world of Warcraft that certain game systems are designed to make the game feel a little bit slower, or to prolong online or subscription time, to make the game feel artificially epic when it is in fact just an exercise of moving from one time-gated thing to the next. If you have that opinion of the game, great. I'm not going to pretend that the points that support that opinion don't exist. But there's also the critique that the game is way too fast and accessible, that a player can create and get a character ready for heroic raiding in just a few short days. So today I'm going to drop a list of 10 features that were introduced throughout the world of Warcraft in no particular order that have made progressing through the game feel faster, more convenient, have let players spend less time grinding and more time doing something else. But this isn't some hold your hand positive wow sunshine list, no siree. In my opinion, the time played hyperbole is pretty ridiculous when that's the only point being argued. There are arguments all over the spectrum. Some things are too fast, others too slow, and we all feel differently. So let's get right to it. First on the list, boosts. Duh, right? Boosts are what let players skip everything except for the current expansion. Undeniably, that is a lot of time saved. How much time saved is debatable though, because to buy a boost, that's $60 or 4 months of game time, and it's safe to argue that it doesn't take the average player 4 months to reach max level, at least if they're motivated to get to endgame. But everyone who buys an expansion box these days gets one free boost, so everyone has that opportunity to skip a lot of leveling. Number 2. Lifting attunements. Once upon a time, we had to go through a lengthy attunement process to gain access to dungeons or raids. From Onyxia and Molten Core to Karazhan and the Black Temple, and grinding your way to get heroic dungeon keys, blah. Getting in was an effort through both solo and group content. If you were lucky, you had a willing team to help get you through quickly. These days, you can walk into almost any instance with very few barriers to entry. If you're trying to join pickup groups though, there's a social barrier that may be much higher. Number 3. Offline progression. It's an ancient pastime to run older instances for possible BOE pieces of gear or other goodies to sell in the auction house, but many players also ran these for the sheer value of vendoring junk for gold. To this day, there are still guides being made on how to most efficiently grind instances or outdoor content for a healthy profit. The Garrison, Order Hall, and War Table brought a feature that's still controversial to this day. I remember all the Facebook comparisons. But using these features allows players to log in, queue up for a few missions, and then come back later for rewards including gold, profession materials, and gear. For the exceptionally dedicated, a small army of alts and the mobile app could produce millions of gold with minimal time spent in-game. Number 4. Warlock portals. Many players consider the ritual of summoning a much-loved addition, especially for the warlocks themselves. Imagine having to prepare for a raid by filling your inventory with a ton of soul shards for every lazy person you had to summon to the instance. The short-lived but popular mass summon guild perk overshadowed the often called lock closet, but there's no denying the utility warlocks now give to the logistical side of grouping. Number 5. AoE looting. Once upon a time, even killing mobs quickly needed a bit of planning. Clearing out a pile of enemies, looting once, and moving on doesn't feel like anything new, but before Mr. Pandaria, mass pulls were followed by mass pauses, so players could kneel down over and over and over again to loot. It's one thing to lose time thanks to a lack of portals or having to fly around a mountain, but I remember the days of doing single pulls of Scarlet Monastery. Looting took longer than the pull itself, and it was a race to the finish before mobs started to despawn. Number 6. Lockout extensions. Sometimes you and your team just wanted to get to that boss that you're progressing on, but don't want to go through the trouble of re-clearing bosses that no longer give upgrades. Introduced in Wrath of the Lich King, lockout extensions save hours of possible re-clearing. And for the savvy solo players, they use this method to skip certain old bosses every week for more efficient farming of rare drops. Number 7. Catch-up tokens. Introduced during Warlords of Draenor, special tokens were made available that, when used, would award a random piece of gear that propelled lesser gear characters to an almost raid-ready level, bypassing the hurdles of grinding heroics or raid finder difficulty. It's since evolved to what we see on vendors as well as the world quest system, which scales gear rewards to something slightly higher than your current item level, making the jump in gear slightly less pronounced but still pretty quick. Number 8. Professions. At least in my opinion, professions are an embattled system that don't feel like a very strong component of what makes our WoW characters feel unique. But they sure are easy to access now. Once upon a time, characters had to level from level 1 all the way up to the most recent expansion's rank, which was like, I don't know, like 800 or something? Now, profession disciplines are separated, with a ranking system per expansion, so you can hop right into what's current without having to farm for old materials or buy so-called profession leveling kits. Number 9. PvP scaling. PvP has gone through several iterations for the sake of closing the gap between characters who are freshly leveled and fully geared gladiators. Legion PvP went as far as limiting the gap through stat templates that separated the power between players through item level breakpoints. Today's PvP systems rely on a form of scaling to ensure that while heavily geared characters have a clear advantage over a fresh max leveled player, there are far fewer opportunities to go Dynasty Warriors and one-shot these said players. And finally, number 10. Stat-changing gear. Also introduced in Warlords, most gear is now able to switch between a character's main stats. Meaning today, a shaman can freely switch between enhancement and elemental, for example, and not have to farm and fight for separate sets of intelligence mail or agility mail. It's all the same. Secondary stats are a different story, of course, but you're less of a fish out of water, so to speak. So those are 10 of what I think are the top features that counter the numerous arguments that insist that Blizzard is trying to prolong your subscription for online time or whatever. But it doesn't mean that everything on this list is great for the game either. I would love to hear your thoughts on it. What are the features that you would love to keep around while dumping others? What in the world of Warcraft should feel more convenient, and what should be stretched out more to feel more epic? Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel in case you want more of this and all things Warcraft. I hope to see you later. Until next time, stay safe, stay happy, and stay breezy.